अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरोन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशकालिने नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नामिने गौतुषे नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कान्ता राधा कान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौरङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Reading from Prabhupada's book, Introduction. We'll continue from where we stopped last time. On the home front, Abhay sent copies of Back to Godhead to the President of India, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, along with a letter warning him of the perilous fate that awaits a society convicted by the godless. Please therefore save them from the great fall down. He requested His Excellency at least to glance over the headlines of the enclosed copies of Back to Godhead and to consider granting the editor an interview. I am crying alone in the wilderness at the present moment, wrote Abhay. His Excellency never replied. Even through the heat of the New Delhi summer, when the temperatures rose to 114 degrees, Abhay continued to go out daily to sell his fortnightly publication. Once he suffered heat stroke and reeled in the streets until a friend picked him up in his car and took him to a doctor. Another time he was gored by a cow and lay for some time unattended by the roadside. At times like this, he sometimes wondered why he had left home and business, and why, since he was now surrendered to Krishna, everything had become so difficult. But years later, when his Krishna consciousness mission was established in many countries with many disciples, he would say, "At the time, I could not understand, but now I realize all those difficulties were assets. It was all Krishna's mercy." So, of course, Srila Prabhupada is a pure devotee of Krishna. However, we should know that he is demonstrating all these emotions, just like maybe a practicing sadhaka or a new devotee, to help us understand how the life of a practicing devotee moves ahead on the path of Krishna consciousness. You know, here we can see that Prabhupada is keeping so much of patience Patience based on faith on the scriptures, patience based on faith on the parampara, the spiritual master. Not that because I don't see the results of what I am doing, I should start thinking that Krishna is not with me. You know, having faith that great things or good things take time. You know, so keeping that patience, that anything good, it takes time. So Prabhupada kept that patience, that faith, that I'm on a mission. I'm doing what my spiritual master is asking me to do. I'm doing the right thing. And even if I don't see the result, I should not become disheartened or discouraged. I should keep on moving, you know. So he kept that faith and he kept on moving, seeing everything as Krishna's mercy. So this is what we have to also learn from Prabhupada. Mm. When I read Prabhupada's life, I understand one thing, that many acharyas have come in the past. But, you cannot relate to their life so much because they came as extraordinary souls and they did extraordinary things, uh, which ordinary person can never imagine to achieve. Srila Prabhupada was also something like that. But Srila Prabhupada conducted his life in such a way that he could set an example for all the people of this century or the previous century to relate with and follow. See, he was not, um, I mean, a brahmachari or sannyasi by birth, in the sense he entered into Grihastha ashram. So why did Krishna arrange for Prabhupada to be a Grihastha? Like Bhakti Siddhanta was Naishtik brahmachari, he never got married, right? Isn't it? Now, if Krishna had sent Prabhupada to preach the movement of Krishna consciousness all over the world, Krishna could have also arranged that Prabhupada would have lived his whole life as a brahmachari or would have taken sannyas at the age of 20, 25, or 30. Why did Krishna made an arrangement that Prabhupada be in Grihastha ashram? Why? Because I was thinking, you see, look at Prabhupada. He lived his life in such a way that he showed by his example for everyone how to be a good brahmachari, how to be a good grihastha, how to be a good vanaprastha, and how good to be a good sannyasi. Right? He passed through all four ashrams to show to people, right? Isn't it? So that you can learn from his example that this is how to conduct yourself in Krishna consciousness. So his life is like that, that though he is a very highly empowered personality, he lived like a common man so that common men can relate with him and learn from him. Therefore, when devotees asked Prabhupada, what is the secret of going back and back to Godhead? Prabhupada said, I have showed you everything. You just do what I did. And then you'll be successful. Hmm? So you see, his life is like that, something which everyone can learn from. Next paragraph, Vijay Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu Dandaratana. While keeping up his effort of printing and selling back to Godhead in Delhi, Abhay decided to take up residence in Vrindavana, 8 miles south of New Delhi. Gaudiya Vaishnavas 80 miles south of New Delhi. Gaudiya Vaishnavas consider Vrindavana to be the most sacred spot in the universe because of Lord Krishna's childhood pastimes there during his incarnation 5,000 years ago. The chief followers of Lord Chaitanya had gone to Vrindavana 500 years ago, written books, established temples, and located the places of Krishna's many pastimes in the forest, pastures, and along the bank rivers. River banks. Abhay's idea was to write his essays in the peaceful, spiritual atmosphere of Vrindavana and commute to Delhi to distribute his literature and seek donations from respectable patrons. He took a simple, very inexpensive room in the Vamsi Gopalaji temple located on the bank of the Yamuna river, and there he entered the special quality of life in Vrindavana.
Yeah, next
Hare,
Shamala Mataji.
Hare.
Hare Krishna. Abhay did not see Vrindavana as would an ordinary person. As a pure devotee of Krishna, he felt great bliss simply in walking down a dirt lane or in seeing the deity forms of Krishna, which appeared on every street, in thousands of temples and homes. From his small rooftop room, he could see the Yamuna following before him and extending into a broad curving sheet of river that shimmered in the afternoon sun. In the evening, he enjoyed the cooling breezes from one second, Prabhu. Sun. Okay, a broad curving sheet of river that shimmered in the afternoon sun. In the evening, he enjoyed the cooling breezes from the Yamuna and heard devotees chanting their evening prayers. At the Kesi Gata, he would hear temple bells ringing throughout the town, and sometimes he would cease from his writing and walk into the busy areas. Amidst the residents and pilgrim visitors, he heard the chanting of Hare Krishna everywhere, and many passers-by would greet him with the customary Jaya Radhe and Hare Krishna. Shall I continue, Prabhu? Hare Krishna. Can I continue, Prabhu? Shall I continue?
Yes, Mata.
As Vrindavana was Krishna's abode, so Abhay was Krishna's servant. In Vrindavana, he felt at home. Naturally, he continued to think of preaching, hankering for others to know the intimate peace and ecstasy of Vrindavana. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was inviting all souls to join him in his eternal abode. And even in India, few understood, and outside India, people knew nothing of Vrindavana or of the Yamuna or of what it meant to be free of material desires. Abhay thought, why shouldn't people all over the world have this? This was the abode of peace, and no one knew anything of it. No, nor were people interested. But this was what they were actually hankering for. Driven by the desire to broadcast the glories of eternal Vrindavana, Abhay worked almost constantly in Vrindavana to produce each issue of Back to Godhead. Commuting, however, became difficult. He would take the morning train into Delhi and, having nowhere to stay, return. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mandakini Ganga Mataji. He would take the morning train.
Yeah, okay. Hare Krishna. He would take the morning train into the Delhi and, having nowhere to stay, return to Vrindavana the same night. That didn't have give him much time in the city, and it was expensive. Sometimes a pious gentleman would give him a place to stay, but even with his minimal personal expenses, Abhay had difficulty raising enough donations to cover traveling, printing, and mailing. After producing 12 consecutive fortnightly editions of Back to Godhead. Abhay again ran out of money. The printer said he could not print simply out of friendship. Returning to Vrindavana, Abhay continued writing, but with no plan for publication. One day, in a renounced and a solitary mood, Abhay composed a Bengali poem entitled Vrindavana Bhajana. Its opening stanzas were especially self-reflective and personal. I am sitting alone in Vrindavana Dhama. In this mood, I am getting many realizations. I have my wife, sons, daughters, grandsons, everything, but I have no money, so they are a fruitless glory. Krishna has shown me the naked form of material nature. By his strength, it has all become tasteless to me today. Yashyaham
Anugrihanami Harishet. Yeah.
Ghanam Shanaihi. I gradually take away all the wealth of those upon whom I am merciful. How was I able to understand this mercy of the All-Merciful? Everyone has abandoned me, seeing me a penniless, wife, relatives, friends, brothers, everyone. This is misery, but it gives me a laugh. I sit alone and laugh.
Thank you, Mataji. Ashok Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. In this Maya Sansara, whom do I really love? Where have my loving father and mother gone now? And where are all my elders who were my own folk? Who will give me news of them? Tell me who. All that is left of this family life is a list of names. One night, Abhay had a striking dream. The same dream he had several times before during his days as a householder. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati appeared just as Abhay had known him, the tall, scholarly sannyasi coming directly from the spiritual world, from the Krishna's personal entourage. He called to Abhay and indicated what he should follow. Repeatedly he called and mentioned he was asking Abhay to take sannyas. Come, he urged, become a sannyasi. Abhay awoke in a state of wonder. He thought of this instruction as another feature of the original instruction Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had given him at their first meeting in Calcutta, the same instruction that his spiritual master had later solidified in a letter, become an English preacher and spread Krishna consciousness through the Western world. Sannyasa was for that end. Otherwise, why would his spiritual master ask him to accept it? In the standard Vedic social system, a man is supposed to leave his family at 50 and become a renounced monk, a sannyasi, and thus dedicate his remaining days to chanting, hearing, preaching the glories of the Lord. Abhay reasoned that his spiritual master was saying, now take sannyas and you will actually be able to accomplish this mission. Formerly, the time was not right. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Harneet Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Pranam. Abhay deliberated cautiously. By accepting sannyasa, a Vaishnava dedicates his body, mind, and words totally to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, renouncing all other engagements. Abhay was already doing all those things, but he felt that by accepting the sannyasa order, he could solidify his position and gain even more impetus for the great work that still lay ahead. The Vedic standard and examples set by the previous acharyas was that if one wanted to lead a preaching movement, sannyasa was required. At first, Abhay had resisted, but now he was reconsidering. He turned to a god brother, Keshava Maharaj, in Mathura, who stressed that Abhay take sannyas immediately. In later years, Prabhupada could recall, I was sitting alone in Vrindavana writing. My godbrother insisted to me, Bhakti Vedanta Prabhu, you must do it. Without accepting the renounced order of life, nobody can become a preacher. It was my spiritual master who insisted through this godbrother. So unwillingly, I accepted. After formal sannyasa ceremony in Vrindavana, Abhay's name became Abhay Charnaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami. Yet his basic problems remained. He wanted to preach Krishna consciousness, but few were willing to listen. Such things hadn't been changed with his becoming a sannyasi.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Gaurav Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. One change took place, however. Bhaktivedanta Swami decided to write books. When a librarian advised him to write books, they were permanent, whereas newspapers were read once and thrown away. Bhaktivedanta Swami took it that his spiritual master was speaking through this person. Then an Indian army officer who liked back to Godhead suggested the same thing. In both cases, Bhaktivedanta Swami took the advice as a revelation from his spiritual master. Prabhuji, could you scroll? Bhaktivedanta Swami considered Srimad Bhagavatam because it was the most important and authoritative Vaishnava scripture. Although Bhagavad Gita was the essence of all Vedic knowledge, presented in a brief ABC fashion, Srimad Bhagavatam was elaborate. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati and Bhakti Vinod Thakur had both written Bengali commentaries on the Bhagavatam. In fact, most of the great Vaishnava acharyas of the past had commented on Srimad Bhagavatam, the spotless Vedic scripture. An English translation of the commentary for this book could one day change the hearts of the entire world. And if Bhaktivedanta Swami could publish even a few books, his preaching would be enhanced. He could go abroad with confidence and not appear empty handed. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Next, Vishaka Mataji. Vishaka Mataji.
Yes, Bhaktivedanta Swami returned to Delhi with new purpose. The paper and printing capital of India was in the Chandni Chowk section of Old Delhi, and Bhaktivedanta Swami thought it best to somehow locate himself there to regularly negotiate for printing books. Through an old printing contact, he met a temple owner who gave him a free room in his Radha Krishna temple near Chandni Chowk. The neighborhood was called Chipiwada, a congested, mixed Hindu-Muslim quarter. Now Bhaktivedanta Swami could work either in Vrindavan or Delhi. With new enthusiasm, he racked up a few donations and began again publishing Back to Godhead, while at the same time beginning his translation and commentary of Srimad Bhagavatam. He contemplated the size of the project he was attempting. The Bhagavatam contained 18,000 verses in 12 cantos. Could you scroll up, Prabhu? Which he figured would come to at least 60 volumes. He thought he might be able to finish it in 5 to 7 years. If the Lord keeps me physically fit, he wrote, then in the fulfillment of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's will, I could complete this work. Bhaktivedanta Swami's accepting sannyas, his idea to write and publish Srimad Bhagavatam, and his desire to preach in the West all were interrelated. To preach, he would have to have books, especially if he were to go to the West. There were millions of books in the West, but nothing like this. Nothing to fill the spiritual vacuum in people's lives. He would not merely write, however, but he would personally take the books to the West, present them, and teach people through the books and in person how to develop pure love of God. Although he was known as an English preacher, Bhaktivedanta Swami knew his presentation in a foreign language had many technical flaws, and he had no editor to correct them. But such technical faults would not keep him from printing Srimad Bhagavatam. This was an emergency. When there is fire in the house, he wrote, the inmates of the house go out for help from the neighbors, who may be foreigners to such inmates. And yet, without adequate language, the victims of the fire express themselves, and the neighbors understand the need, even though not expressed in adequate language. The same spirit of cooperation is needed in the matter of broadcasting this transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the whole polluted atmosphere of the present day.
Thank you, Ushantaji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dhanat
Bhaktivedanta Swami was presenting Srimad Bhagavatam unchanged with a greater respect for Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and that was Bhaktivedanta Swami's cardinal virtue. Certainly he was adding his own realizations, but in a spirit of trying to surpass the previous spiritual masters. In all important matters
Not
of
in a
present,
spirit of, not in a spirit.
No, but not in a spirit of trying to surpass the previous spiritual masters. In all important matter of presenting the subject strictly in Parampara, Bhaktivedanta Swami suffered from no faulty and broken technicalities. He knew that without remaining faithful to the disciplic succession, the Bhagavatam purports would not have value. At his room in Chipriwala temple, he typed day and night at his desk beneath the small light and dangled on its cord from the ceiling. He sat on a thin mat on the floor, his typewriter before him on a trunk. Pages accumulated, and he kept them in place with stones. Food and sleep were only incidental. He was completely convinced that Srimad Bhagavatam would create a revolution in a misdirected civilization. Thus, he translated each word and wrote each purport with exacting care and concentration. But it had to be done as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Saraj Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. Bhaktivedanta Swami had moved his Vrindavan residence to the Radha Damodar temple. Now, without even leaving his room, he could look out and see the altar and the 4-foot high form of Vrindavan Chandra, the black marble Krishna deity worshipped hundreds of years ago by Krishnadas Kaviraj. This was superior to his room at the Vanshi Gopal Ji temple, because now he was living in the temple of Jiva Goswami, where great souls like the Goswamis, Rupa, Sanatan. Prabhuji, can you scroll it? Sanatan, Raghunath, and Jeev had all gathered, taken prasadam, chanted and discussed Lord Krishna and Lord Chaitanya. This was the best place to work on Srimad Bhagavatam. While staying at the Radha Damodar temple, Bhakti Vedanta Swami would prepare his own meals. And as he sat to take prasadam, he could see through the lattice work the Samadhi tomb of Rupa Goswami. Feeling Rupa Goswami's presence, he would think of his own mission for his spiritual master. Bhaktivedanta Swami's spiritual master and the previous spiritual masters in the disciplic succession had wanted the Krishna consciousness movement to spread all over the world. And as Bhaktivedanta Swami daily gathered inspiration, sitting before Rupa Goswami's Samadhi, he prayed to his spiritual predecessors for guidance. The intimate direction he received from them was an absolute dictation, and no government, no publisher, nor anyone else could shake or diminish it. Rupa Goswami wanted him to go to the west. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati wanted him to go to the west. And Krishna had arranged that he be brought to the Radha Damodar temple to receive their blessings. At the Radha Damodar temple, he felt he had entered an eternal residence known only to pure devotees of the Lord. Yet, although they were allowing him to associate intimately with them in the place for their pastimes, he felt they were ordering him to leave Radha Damodar and Vrindavan, and to deliver the message of the acharyas to forgetful parts of the world.
Thank you,
Right?
Mataji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Next, Megha Gupta Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Writing was only half the battle. The other half was publishing. The publishers, however, were not interested in the 60-volume Bhagavatam series, and the Bhaktivedanta Swami was not interested in anything else. To publish his books, therefore, he would have to solicit donations and publish at his own expense. A printing contact advised Bhaktivedanta Swami to travel to Gorakhpur and show his manuscript to Hanuman Prasad Podar, the famous religious publishers. Bhaktivedanta Swami took the five. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, could you Bhaktivedanta Swami took the 500-mile trip and obtained a donation of 4,000 rupees to be used toward the publication of his first volume of Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhaktivedanta Swami would read and correct the proofs himself, and even as the first volume was being printed, he was still writing the last chapters. When the proofs were ready at the OK Press, he would pick them up, return to his room at Chippewada, correct the proofs, and then return them. In 1962, he was walking daily back and forth between his room and the printers. The neighborhood was a blend of commercial business and tenement life, with the children playing in the hazardous street. Bhaktivedanta Swami, a gentle-looking yet determined figure, would walk amidst this milieu. As he moved past the tenements, the tile seller, the grain seller, and the sweet shop and the printers. Overhead would be electrical wires, pigeons, and the clotheslines from the tenement balconies. Finally, he would arrive at OK Press, directly across from a small mosque. He would come to deliver the corrected proofs and to anxiously oversee the printing. When the printing
Thank you,
was
Mataji.
complete,
Thank you. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, actually, here you can read Satsvarupa Maharaj is mentioning Prabhupada got it books printed from OK Press. If you read the larger edition of Lilamrita, there you come to also read another press name, which is Radha Press. Interestingly, couple of years ago, when we were looking for a printer to print Spiritual Connection book, so we came across the same press, Radha Press. And then we went there, that person told, your Prabhupada also came to print his Srimad Bhagavatam here. So that was a very interesting coincidence. But then Prabhupada did not continue with them because he did not like the printing quality much. So then he moved from Radha Press to OK Press. I recall that. It's mentioned here. Okay, next paragraph. Amrita Vilasani Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Dandana Pranam. When the printing was completed, Bhaktisiddhanta Swami went out to sell his books, much as he had done with his Back to Godhead newspaper. He soon obtained favorable reviews of the work from Hanuman Prasad Podar and from the renowned Hindu philosopher Dr. Radhakrishnan. The prestigious Adya Libarya Bulletin gave a full review. Nothing. The editor's vast and deep study of the subject. His scholarly godbrothers also wrote their appreciations. He even managed to secure an order for 18 copies from the U.S. Embassy to be distributed in American through the Library of Congress institutional sales. were bleak, but then sales slowed. As the only agent, Bhaktivedanta Swami was spending hours daily just to sell a few copies. Although he was entirely responsible for raising funds for the next volume. In the meantime, he continued translating and writing the purpose, but at the present rate, with sales so slow, he would not be able to complete the work in his lifetime. Bhaktivedanta Swami sent copies to leading politicians and sorry. Okay, and received favorable reviews from Sri Viswanatha Das, governors of Uttar Pradesh, and Dr. Zakir Hasan, the Vice President of India. He also received a personal interview with Dr. Hasan, and a few months later got the opportunity to meet the Prime Minister, Lal Bahadur
Shastri.
Shastri. Hare
Okay,
Krishna,
thank you.
thank you.
Vaishana Leela Mataji.
Hare Krishna. This was a formal occasion in the garden of the Parliament building, where the Prime Minister, surrounded by his aides, received the elderly sadhu. Bhaktivedanta Swami, looking scholarly in his spectacles, stepped forward and introduced himself and his book, Srimad Bhagavatam. As he handed the Prime Minister a copy of Volume 1, a photographer snapped a photo of the author and the Prime Minister smiling over the book. The next day, Bhaktivedanta Swami wrote to Prime Minister Shastri. Soon he received a reply, personally signed by Prime Minister. Dear Swamiji, many thanks for your letter. I am indeed grateful to you for presenting a copy of Srimad Bhagavatam to me. I do realize that you are doing valuable work. It would be a good idea if the libraries in the government institution purchase copies of this book. Using favorable reviews as advertisement, Bhaktivedanta Swami visited prospective donors as he tried to raise funds for the further volumes. Finally, with his manuscripts in hand and with money to print it, he again entered the printing world, purchasing paper, correcting proofs, and keeping the printers on schedule so that each book would be finished on time. Thus, by his persistence, he who had almost no money of his own managed to publish his third large hardbound volume within a little more than 2 years. At this rate, with his respect in the scholarly world increasing, Bhaktivedanta Swami might soon become a recognized figure amongst his countrymen. But he had his vision set on the West, and with the third volume now printed, he felt he was at last prepared. He was 69 and he would have to start soon. It had been more than 40 years since Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had first asked a young householder in Calcutta to preach Krishna consciousness in the West. At the first, the young Abhay Charan had thought it impossible. The obstacle of family responsibilities, however, was now gone, and he was free to travel west, although penniless.
Thank you. Next.
Thank you.
Vrindarani Mataji. Vrindarani Mataji.
Sorry, I didn't heard. Hare Krishna, my obeisances. With most difficulties removed, travel fare and certain items of government permission remained as the last serious restrictions. Then, rather suddenly, in 1965, the final impediments were removed one after another. In Vrindavana, Bhaktivedanta Swami met Mr. Agarwal, a Mathura businessman, and mentioned to him in passing, as he did to almost everyone he met, that he wanted to go to the West. Although Mr. Agarwal had known Bhaktivedanta Swami for only a few minutes, he volunteered to try to get him a sponsor in America by asking his son Gopal, an engineer in Pennsylvania, to send back a sponsorship form. When Mr. Agarwal volunteered to help in this way, Bhaktivedanta Swami urged him to please do so. Bhaktivedanta Swami returned to Delhi, pursuing the usual avenues of book selling, looking for whatever opportunity might arise. One day, to his surprise, he was contacted by the Ministry of External Affairs and informed that his no objection certificate for traveling to the US was ready. Since he had not instigated any proceedings for leave the country, he had to inquire from the ministry about what had happened. They showed him the statutory declaration form signed by Mr. Gopal Agarwal of Butler, Pennsylvania. Mr. Agarwal solemnly declared that he would bear the expenses of Bhaktivedanta Swami during his stay in the US.
Thank you. Next. Now, Bhaktivedanta Swami had a sponsor, but he still needed a passport, visa, P-form, and travel fare. The passport was simple. Now, with passport and sponsorship papers, Bhaktivedanta Swami went to Bombay, not to sell books or raise funds for printing, but to seek assistance in getting to America. He approached Sumati Moraji, the head of this India steamship line, who had helped him with a large donation for printing volume 2 of Srimad Bhagavatam. He showed her his sponsorship papers to her secretary, Mr. Chokshi, who was impressed and went to Mrs. Moraji on his behalf. So basically how it happened is Prabhupada had gone to Kurukshetra. There was some event going on there in Kurukshetra, and Prabhupada had gone to attend it. And Sumati Moraji was also participating in that event. So Prabhupada was sitting below a tree, just like, an ordinary sadhu sitting below a tree. And Sumati Moraji, she was a pious Gujarati lady, a Vaishnava actually. So she was very smart, very clever, as she was a businesswoman. And she had a sense of identifying who is a genuine sadhu and who is not. So when she saw Prabhupada sitting below the tree, she somewhat got attracted towards Prabhupada. They have not yet met each other. This is like the first time. And then she went and bowed down to Prabhupada and asked him for blessings. So then Prabhupada, as a sannyasi, blessed her. Now, that's where Prabhupada came to know about her. And then Prabhupada approached her later on at that time he approached her for donations because he wanted someone to help him print the second volume. The first volume he had already printed with the help of Hanuman Prasad Poddar. Now he needed money for printing the second volume. And this lady helped him. So then, because she helped him, he came to know now this lady runs a steamship company. So then Prabhupada approaches her again in Mumbai that, you please help me to get to America. So it is Krishna who arranged for her to come to Prabhupada, bow down to Prabhupada, so that Prabhupada could know her. And then she became instrumental in sending Prabhupada to United States. Next, yes, let's read next paragraph. Vaiji Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. The Swami from Vrindavan is back, he told her. He has published his book on your donation. He has a sponsor and he wants to go to America. He wants you to send him on a Scindia ship. Mrs. Moraji said no. The Swamiji was too old to go to the United States and expect to accomplish anything. Mr. Choksi conveyed to him Mrs. Moraji's words, but Bhaktivedanta Swami listened disapprovingly. She wanted him to stay in India and complete Srimad Bhagavatam. Why go to the United States? She had argued. Finish the job here. But Bhaktivedanta Swami was fixed on going. He told Mr. Choksi to convince Mrs. Moraji and even coached him on what to say. I find this gentleman very inspired to go to the States and preach Lord Krishna's message to the people there. But when Mr. Choksi told Mrs. Moraji, she again said no. The Swami was not healthy. Besides, people in America were not so cooperative and they would probably not listen to him.
Thank you,
Except
Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. Lalita Prashta Gopi.
Hare Krishna, Dana Pranam Babuji. Exasperated with Mr. Choksi's ineffectiveness, Bhaktivedanta Swami demanded a personal interview. It was granted, and a grey-haired but determined Bhaktivedanta Swami presented his emphatic request, "Please give me one ticket." Sumati, Moraji was concerned. "Swamiji, you are so old. You are taking this responsibility. Do you think it is all right?" "No," he reassured her, lifting his hand as if to reassure a doubting daughter. "It's all right. But do you know what my secretaries think? They say, Swamiji is going to die there." Bhaktivedanta Swami made a face as if to dismiss a foolish rumor. Again, he resisted that. She gave him a ticket. "All right," she said. "Get your P-form and I will make an arrangement to send you by our ship." Bhaktivedanta Swami smiled brilliantly and happily left her offices, past her amazed and skeptical clerks.
Thank you.
Following.
Thanks.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Neha Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Following Mrs. Moraji's instructions, the secretary made final arrangements. Since Bhaktivedanta Swami had no warm clothes, Mr. Choksi took him to buy a wool jacket and other woolen clothes. At Bhaktivedanta Swami's request, Mr. Choksi printed 500 copies of a small pamphlet containing the 8 verses written by Lord Chaitanya and an advertisement for Srimad Bhagavatam. Mrs. Moraji scheduled a place for him on one of her ships, the Jaladuta, which was sailing from Calcutta on August 13. She had made certain that he would travel on a ship whose captain understood the needs of a vegetarian and a Brahmana. And she told the Jaladuta's captain, Arun Pandya, to carry extra vegetables and fruits for the Swami. Mr. Choksi spent the last 2 days with Bhaktivedanta Swami in Bombay, picking up the pamphlets at the press, purchasing clothes, and driving him to the station to catch the train for Calcutta. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Madhumati Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam to you. A few days before the Jaladuta's departure, Bhaktivedanta Swami arrived in Calcutta. Although he had lived much of his life in the city, he now had nowhere to stay. He was, as he had written in his Vrindavan Bhajana, "I have my wife, sons, daughters, grandsons, everything, but I have no money. So they are a fruitless glory." Although in this same city, he had been so carefully nurtured as a child, those days were gone forever. He stayed with a slight acquaintance and the day before his departure, traveled to nearby Mayapur to visit the Samadhi tomb of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. Then he returned to Calcutta. He was ready. He had only a suitcase, an umbrella, and a supply of dry cereal. He didn't know what he would find to eat in America. Perhaps there would only meat. If so, he was prepared to live on boiled potatoes and the cereal which he carried with him. His main baggage, several trunks of his books, were being handled separately by India Cargo. 203 volume sets,
The very thought of the book gave him confidence.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Last paragraph, last two paragraphs. Okay, Hanit Mataji, please read one paragraph, and Achitya, Krishna Mataji, you can read the next.
Hare Krishna. When the day came for him to leave, he needed that confidence. He was making a momentous break with his previous life, and he was old. He was going to an unknown and probably unwelcoming country. To be poor and unknown in India was one thing. Even in these Kali Yuga days, when India's leaders were rejecting India's culture and imitating the West, it was still India. It was still the remains of the Vedic civilization. He had been able to see millionaires, governors, the prime minister simply by showing up at their doors and waiting. A sannyasi was respected. Srimad Bhagavatam was respected. In America, however, it would be different. He would be no one, a foreigner. And there was no tradition of sadhus, no temples, and no free ashrams. But when he thought of the books that he was bringing, transcendental knowledge in English, he became confident. When he met someone in America, he would give him a flyer. Srimad Bhagavatam, India's message of peace and goodwill.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. So we'll stop here. Any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
It's
If
very
I may
emotional.
Yeah, one at a time, please. Varshana Leela Mataji.
Yeah, Prabhuji, actually, I wanted to ask when Prabhupada got his first initiation from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, was he or did he also get any initiated name, Prabhuji, or his name was same, Abhay Charan?
Yeah, it was slightly changed. His father had given him the name Abhay Charana, and his spiritual master make it Abhay Charana Aravinda.
Okay. And
Slight
Prabhuji,
difference.
okay, thank you. And I have one more question, Prabhuji. Like when we were reading today about Mrs. Moraji, so maybe it will come in the future, in future in this book. Did Prabhupada ever later on the later stages when he established the movement and he came back to India anytime, did he meet Mrs. Moraji again, Prabhuji, ever?
Yeah,
after?
yes, right.
Okay.
He did meet her again. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Ashok Prabhu.
Prabhuji, the first question was in the poem which the Prabhupada written. They say, I have wife, sons, daughters, everything. I have no money, so they are a fruitless glory. Means if he had, means the relatives were there, why they were called in glories, fruitless glory? Because money was not with Prabhupada, but they are called, so they are fruitless glory.
Fruitless glory because they are not able to help him in any way. Like if you have your people, family, friends, then you naturally seek support from them, right?
Yeah.
But he's saying because I don't have money, so they are also not supporting me in any way.
Prabhuji, the second question is in Radha Damodar temple. He was living in the temple of Jiva Goswami, where great souls like Goswamis, Rupa Goswami, Sanatan Goswami, Raghunathan, and Jiva Goswami. Means 4 Goswamis had stayed there out of 6.
No, it's not like that. 4 stayed there. Nothing like that. Only 4 names are mentioned. That was the place where these 6 Goswamis would come, meet with each other, have discussions. No one lived actually there. Jiva Goswami worshipped Radha Damodar deity there, so he might be living there. But not that they had their residence there. Everyone
It is
lived.
written that great souls like these 4 Goswamis had taken prasadam, chanted, and discussed Lord Krishna and Chaitanya.
Discussed. Yeah, so they came there and had discussions like that.
4 Goswamis out of 6. Okay.
Not 4, actually, all 6 would have come.
Okay, all the
Maybe
6
four
were
are-
there. In all,
four-
one point
four
or the
are-
other time, all
Yeah,
these
4 are
6 were there.
mentioned, but all
Okay.
6 were in there.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you, brother.
Shamala Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. 500 copies pamphlet containing 8 verses written by Lord Chaitanya, that is Cheto Darpana Madhyanam, 8 verses, Prabhu. What are the verses? 8 verses?
Must be. Shishashtakam prayers.
Yeah, maybe.
That's the only thing Sri Chaitanya left.
Right.
Mm.
Okay.
That's the only thing written of his that is with us. Nothing else.
Yeah. Okay, Prabhu.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, so we continue from where we stopped today, page number 71. We'll continue from that page next class. Okay, fine. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna. Thank you, teacher.